So, good morning, everyone. And on this beautiful morning of 8th March 2021, all of us are here to celebrate International Women's Day. And this department, as we know, has been led by a woman. And we have most of our female staff, so it has been dominated by women all around. Just as a small introduction and the journey of how a woman started this department, and the association, the organization has helped us throughout. We've made a small video so that we can take you to a journey, of a beautiful journey, where the women of our department, even the students, have exceptionally done well. So I'm just going to share my screen. वीडियो दिख रहा है? So this was a small introduction of how women in this department work and how are we supposed to be respected and supported by our male faculties. I would like to introduce our speaker, Dr. Tiana, who is the Director of Education at Toronto Forensic Institute. She is an Iranian Canadian woman, and she's always believed in women empowerment. She has dealt with cases and very closely been very close to women-related issues. Her current research explores the impact of involuntary confinement of psychologically challenged offenders, and she has been one person who she is my go-to person, and whenever it's about women and women empowerment, she's one person who I've always respected and I've looked up to. Thank you so much, ma'am, for being here and sparing your time.
Thank you, Dr. Chella. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. It's such a pleasure to meet all of you. Most of you I have heard of because Dr. Chella speaks very highly of all of you and her encounters with you. So I want to thank you for providing this opportunity to allow me to speak to you. As Dr. Chella stated, I am the Director of Education here at Toronto Forensic Institute. I don't take that lightly because, as Dr. Chella also stated, I am Iranian Canadian, so I came to Canada in 1983, and the whole purpose of advancing my education was to be able to help other women from different cultures also be able to obtain the same scholastic level of comprehension in order to be able to help other people. Now, as you all know, that being part of the Western society, the vision, the outlooks are very different. Therefore, with online technology has provided us an opportunity to connect with one another in order to be able to share information both academically, but also in addition where we can teach in practice and ethical and cultural appropriation. We talk about a lot of assessing psychological disorders. I am passionate about that. A little history about myself. I witnessed my mother's murder when I was about 3 years old. I was smuggled out of Iran, and we went and traveled to Europe until we got our status here in Canada. Growing up with a different culture, beliefs, and practices, school was never a priority for us girls. It was always about finding a rich husband and having a comfortable living. Well, I'll tell you, ladies and gents, because I see Mr. Shaban there, I am the rich man that my family wanted me to get married to. So here I am. However, my career started in policing and corrections. And as I grew and developed within my career, I also realized there was such a lack of knowledge when it came to behavioral issues or abnormal issues that our offenders were actually experiencing. as a result, what we also found was that a lot of the frontline officers were also encountering the same difficulties in understanding human behavior. Therefore, that's where forensic psychology entered my world. For the longest time, I wanted to be a lawyer, all the way up to my master's, and I had an offender who committed suicide. In conjunction to this, also, we had a colleague that committed suicide not too long after. So it kind of pushed me to go towards psychology, and the forensics aspect of it is the social judicial system that we see and the injustice that we see as well when we're dealing with persons of different ethnical background. Now, when you are in Canada, one of the things, or in Western society, period, is that, for example, in the United States, they call immigrants aliens, as if, we're non-existent or we are not available. So, but what I have noticed in order to understand cultural issues is to educate and empower. And I believe that even when women cross-sectionally, we are communicating, there's different cultural language that we have to be aware of. There's different body languages that we speak of, different methods of assessment that we have to actually incur. And also, to predict behavior, we use a lot of our own personal biases and experience as a result of our own upbringing and core values. Therefore, being part of the Toronto Forensic Institute and having the ability to decipher as to what curriculum can be put together is something that I had been dreaming about. So it's, in some ways, it's a dream job. Nevertheless, when it comes to forensic psychology, I think what we look for is not just the prediction of pattern of behavior or cognitive deficiencies, but we're also looking about how to evaluate a situation, how we can provide a treatment. And as of all you are all professionals, is that the same treatment is going to work for every individual or every patient or every client. So when we started this program, we saw a very reduced numbers in women wanting to further educate themselves. And what was very astonishing at the same time was the mere fact that we found a lot of the females were reluctant to pursue education in forensic science or forensic psychology. Therefore, there was a mutual understanding or some form of misconception that in this field you're not going to grow. It's not technology. Well, Toronto Forensic Institute offers behavioral science and cognitive technology. We are currently working on a software by the name of Vita. She is our artificial forensic psychologist. Her role in assessments is to be able to actually conduct evaluations without having the personal biases or the personal perception, cultural behaviors or attitudes, and to eliminate all of that in order to be able to provide a positive evaluation. So that's what we're looking for. As Dr. Chella explained, her and I have teamed up. I am blessed to have Dr. Chella as part of our team now, and we are in the process of creating a curriculum for forensic science and as well forensic odontology, incorporating cognitive technologies and behavioral science. What we're trying to do is to show you that as individuals, as endeavors, as scholars, as scientists, as doctors, we want to make sure that we're enhancing our future generations. And whether you're across in India, in Iran, in Russia, in America, I think technology has enabled us the opportunity to learn from one another. And after speaking to Dr. Chella is a huge fan of cross-sectional training and teaching, which was something I had never even thought about. And being able to communicate with another woman in a third world country and seeing the gravity and the passion that she imposes and purports when she's dealing with the subject matters. So when she informed me of this beautiful panel. The first thing I thought about was how wonderful is it that us minority women are able to discuss openly what we have and what we have encountered. And I think overall, by being a multi-dimensional group of women, we can actually send out messages and speak to one another about what we have learned, what we are going to learn, what we learn from each other. And I believe as scholars and also as academics, we can all concur that you never stop learning. And I believe that whether it's your university or our private institution here, the bottom line is enhancing one another's knowledge, being able to financially, physically, and emotionally be stable on our own, and not depend on anyone. And I'm not talking specifically about relationships or marriage. I'm not saying that, but what I'm saying is that my goal was to use this opportunity that, you know, as a result of the death of my mother, that I was going to honor her and make something of myself. And knowing the culture that I was raised in, a lot of times, like I said, education was not something that was promoted. It was not something that was discussed. Therefore, here at Toronto Forensic Institute, we embrace that concept. We coach our students. We make sure we have meetings with them. Specifically, if we have international female students, I have 10 right now. 2 are from India, and I sponsor them and for their academics, because again, helping someone to come over or helping someone to gain knowledge in order to contribute to the scientific literature is prominent. We notice that forensic psychology or forensic behavioral science is not that huge in our Western culture. We see it on TV. They make it look wonderful and everything is done within 48 hours, but there's constructs that we have to follow. There's guidelines, there's ethical boundaries, there is personal communication with clients. So I hope that you all take, you know, we can exchange information and therefore be able to stay in touch with one another, because like I said, Dr. Chella has taught me so much in our brief encounter. And I'm looking forward to working with her and her team. She's very proud of the university and her students, specifically her female students. Therefore, I'm here. I'm her partner now. So if you guys need anything, please do not hesitate to contact me. I can be reachable on Facebook or on Dr. Chella's profile as well. Let me know if you have any questions. I'll give it back to the panel because I know there are several people here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Doc. This has been wonderful. And I think as women, to be in a male dominated field was always difficult for us. But not just about that, but I think here at the department, we've never been discriminated at the university, at the institute, or at the department level. We've all been together through the thick and thin. They've helped us, they have supported us. Like the video said, it was led, dominated, and respected. So we've been very lucky throughout. Just as as an introduction, can we know more about your specialty so that our students could be able to get more interested, since they were a lot, they wanted to know about psychology. So I thought
Sure.
maybe if you could.
Absolutely. So my specialty is in post-traumatic stress disorder and major depressive disorder. Now, as you know, in the diagnostic statistical manual, there is different categories on the Access 1 and Access 2. I never intended to use my degree as a clinical perspective, because my love has always been research and artificial intelligence. When I got involved in this industry and I started to conduct assessments, forensic assessments and comprehensive assessments, now here the course will require you, if somebody's pleading insanity, or someone says, they committed a crime against their spouse and it was just accidental, what we do is we conduct a comprehensive psychological assessment in not only learning about the client's mental state, which is mens rea, and their action at the time of the crime, which is actus reus. And then what we have to do is basically use substantiated scholarly information in order to explain to the jury and to the judge why we think this individual is competent to stand in trial, or why we think that they're incompetent to stand in trial. And it's very important to know that only 2% of offenders that plea insanity actually get the insanity plea and get off. Some of those are like Andrea Yates. We've seen Susan Smith. Recently, we saw Chris Watts, and it's all the different categories that forensic behavioral psychology brings in, because what people fail to understand, in every culture, in every discipline, we use psychology. We use the mind. We understand the behavior, the attitude. And I believe that when you're looking, even with your own personal intuition, it's imperative to understand where you stand as a woman, but also as an individual within a society that can be very difficult to navigate through. When I started my scholastic career, I never thought I would be here where I am today. But the more that I went through the system, not only being a woman, but being a minority, being told that I have an accent, I speak 3 other languages besides English. So what you learn along the way is how to navigate and learn to be a leader within a field that Dr. Chella said it's very dominated based on men perspective and testing. So with a lot of stuff that I do, I look at narrow specific problem areas. I look at not only the history, I look at their childhood traumas. Were they sexually assaulted? Was there incidents in their lives that could have led them to where they are today? I do not believe that if your parent is an alcoholic that you're going to end up an alcoholic. I believe that a lot of times in the judicial system, there are a lot of factors that actually play in the situation or of the crime. Therefore, it's not just, the parents or the lack of parents, lack of academic, but it also looks at the other endeavors. So their peers, social institutions, we look at environmental issues. These are all categories that you actually have to learn about in order to understand what it means to conduct an assessment. We also look at, besides the specific approaches, we try to understand the reliability and the consistency of the scholarly reports that are coming out. What we understood is that even though as scholars, when we conduct, let's say prediction, risk prediction or violent prediction, in a lot of cases, we look at gang members and we think, oh, they're going to repeat the crime, or we look at, spousal abuse. Well, if you take a person, I'll use my father in this case. My mother was his second wife. After her death, he had a third and a fourth wife. And every single one he tried to physically harm when they decided that they were going to leave an abusive relationship. So what I did was I used that specific trauma and I published my first actual paper with ProQuest in 2019, talking about how individual traumas can actually have adhesive effects on you later on in life. So you may not know that you are going through a depressive disorder, whether it's acute or chronic. So when you're dealing with the special population, and in most cases, it's the lower socioeconomical background, here in Toronto, specifically in Canada in general, and we're now seeing it more and more in the United States, we see it in the UK, is honor killing, killing, who's killing who's honoring who. So those are the stuff that you have to look at, because what happens is when individuals within the judicial system are not aware or of the cultural values and beliefs and practices, we are very quick to label people. We're very quick to label the situations. Therefore, when you're conducting an assessment and you're trying to measure how well an inventory does, so I use a lot of MMPIs. I use the Sexual Assault Indicator Inventory SI-20, the psychopathology tests that we do. And again, I have to be very mindful that when I'm dealing, for example, with persons that are being charged with domestic assault and aggravated causing bodily harm here in Canada, there's two types. We have the summary offense, which is it's not that serious. It's 2 years less a day. This is according to the law. And then we have what we call indictable offense. Now, indictable you could face up to 25 years to life. But I'm sure everybody knows the Canadian justice system is not like the American justice system or like Iranians. When a woman is raped, you do not require here to have 2 male witnesses to come forward. But what we have seen is the interrogation of the victim is re-victimizing the victim. And there's a subtle communication or interpretation on the victim side where they are interpreting that maybe they did something wrong. And right now, one of the things that I am involved in is human trafficking. And we see so many women from Romania, from Russia, from India, from Iran that are being shipped illegally with promises of great lifestyles and great endeavors. But again, if people such as yourselves are able to educate others, so when you're on Facebook looking at photos, feel free to put something you learned academically from your professors or from the people that you work with, from your assignments, because education is knowledge, and knowledge is wisdom, and wisdom is power, and power is confidence. And that's where you get the stability as an individual to be able to help other people. And when it comes to forensic psychology, as I indicated earlier, it takes several disciplines. And the beauty of psychology is that you can always further your studies. As you can see behind me, I have a whole bunch of textbooks that I utilize when I'm conducting assessments. How are my assessments done? With students here at Toronto Forensic Institute, we do a lot of mock assessments. We currently are working on a brand new building where we're planning to build our behavioral science and computing department, where artificial intelligence and cognitive technologies are going to be utilized in order to train our students, our faculty, but also allow a realistic approach to when you're dealing with clients or patients. Mock trainings are wonderful, but when you're dealing with actual clients, there's a lot of hatred because they might be there involuntary. There's a lot of self-hate. There could be cultural differentiation. For example, they think that if somebody is Punjabi and you're brown, that's a good match. So that's racial identification and racial verification. So they're basing it on the skin color and what the person appears. So this is where we come in and we try to educate people that psychology or abnormal behavior is not only within our culture, how it is understood in different cultures, how the treatments are provided, how people react to certain situations is what we choose to look forward to. Therefore, when you're looking at behavioral science or forensic science, there's different components that actually brings the evidence to life. So it's not just one person's role within the judicial system or within any formality. Another thing that I encountered as a student in my scholastic career was the amount of professors that would say, this is not your calling. This is not you. You have this. You look this way. You put your hair up. You wear too much makeup. Again, my appearance, where I'm from, what I wear has nothing to do with my scholastic experience and knowledge. Knowledge, again, is learned every day. We are, we're brought up from the time that we're into this world, where we're learning body languages, facial expressions. Therefore, there's a lot of concentrations in different areas to validify what we are discussing. And to be able to put your formulation thought together and be able to express yourself, even if you decided that psychology is not for you, psychology is the fundamental, profound concept of being able to understand the world around you. When you go to a different country, you don't learn to tolerate people. We learn to adapt and grow, because when you learn to understand where you are, the respect of the culture, the communication styles, the mannerisms. For example, you're not going to go to Korea and extend your hand or give them a hug. Here in Canada, if you touch someone in a workplace, it's considered sexual assault. If you call somebody East Indian or Indian, it's considered derogatory. If you call someone a Persian princess, it's derogatory. So what we have learned through this is that as academics, especially as women, we have to embrace and empower our younger generation. We have to let them know that, yes, beauty is wonderful, spending money on your clothes is wonderful, but those don't last, because we age. And as we age, we have newer people coming in and, grandstanding and making themselves better. So when it comes to key concept of psychology, assessment, forensic science, or behavioral science, I believe genuinely in my heart, it's how you approach your situation or your contact. I don't treat, whether they're inmates, officers, I don't treat them indifferently. I show respect. I treat people how I think I would want to be treated if I was in their circumstance or in their situation. And I try not to be judge and jury. I try to be that third party, and I do my best to be as ethical and as honest as I can. But I'd be lying to you if I told you that sometimes my own personal beliefs and experience from certain individuals, certain crimes, does not play a role when I'm conducting an assessment. And that's where we talk about ethical boundaries. So I think as a totality, education embraces how you see the world and how you can contribute and develop. So with Toronto Forensic Institute, the owner is a woman, and she is as passionate as most of her faculties are about education, but very critical. Dr. Chella has been wonderful in assisting me with a couple of my students from India, and assisting me in, because of the time gaps. For example, I think it's morning for you all. It's midnight for me. So it's imperative that, we have that kind of communication. And it's so good that students from India, Africa, Philippines will take courses and cross-section. And this is the bond that I established with Dr. Chella, because I want students from Toronto Forensic Institute to learn from faculties from India and their specialties. And I want them to learn the culture, because the more you know about human behavior and human nature, you will find that you can extend yourself in a lot of different disciplines. And when we talk about behavioral science, we're talking about the mind, the behavior, the attitude, and its totality of contribution to our global society and also our judicial system. We will be offering a lot of free seminars coming in the coming month, and I hope that you all join us. Thanks, Dr. Chella.
Thank you, Dr. Tiana.
My
I have
pleasure.
I have one I just want to discuss it with you as most of the time women who are suffering with traumatic incidents in their life are not able to share their experience with a consultant or any other person because they feel shame from inside that whatever happened it might because of their behavior or society they are implementing that thing to that woman itself. So, could we able to able to identify post-traumatic changes in their behavior by any psychological parameters?
Absolutely. I believe, I do believe that in a lot of cases, when you're dealing with individuals that may be involved in domestic violence or sexual situations, you do encounter a lot of silent, what we call silent triggers. Now, we've seen people talk about, bruising on the body, but as we have learned is that with technology, we've also learned that men or abusers now have learned that you don't have to hit in the face, that you can hit in the body area. But when we are assessing a prediction of violence, what we also see is something called the honeymoon stage. So it's a circle. It starts with, the beating, the apology, they get back together and it goes right back to where they started. So until the victim is able to realize their stability and realize their security, then they can come forward. Now, I've been very intrigued by East India's some of the rapes that have been happening against women, the gang rape specifically on the medical student. That really hit home for me. And I think because we as a society shame the victims, we do not understand that we have the right and the equal opportunity and the inclusivity to be able to walk among people and not fear that we're going to be sexually assaulted. And this is the misconception that we also still see in science, because not everybody is educated. Only 10% of the population is educated when it comes to just all aspects of human life. So I'm not sure what parameters you use, Dr. Pagni, but we have we still utilize that because a lot of the victims fall under the somatic category, which is post-traumatic stress disorder. We also get mood disorders. In a lot of cases, we do work with different organizations here, women's networking groups. We work with social services to provide funding and housing. It's a little bit more difficult for persons of ethnicity, having cultural beliefs and practices. For example, like Iranians, I can't see a woman just running away and trying to divorce her husband or take her kids, because a lot of times it comes down to financial stability and the children. So we do encounter a lot of that. So that's actually one of the courses we're working on. So I hope you join us on the webinar. It's going to be very effective.
Yeah, thank you, Tiana. One more thing, if you want to share something like as a preventive step for women who are right now suffering, we don't know how many women right now suffering in this state, but what do you think? What is your observation that what causes these things with women, and how we can prevent it?
Honestly, Miss Shivani, it's not something that it's preventable. Domestic violence happens both within heterosexual couples, and now we are seeing it in same-sex couples as well. So same-sex gender violence. I believe that because of the lower and different classical caste and social economical backgrounds, and like here, even in Canada, we have smaller groups and organizations or smaller communities that are navigated and segregated. So therefore, we're not in their lives. And unfortunately, what happens in someone's life or behind closed doors, we don't see. But I do believe that when someone says to you, my friend is, I've had this so many times. My friend is getting abused by her husband and she doesn't know what to do. Well, I'm pretty sure I'm speaking to the friend. So without being judgmental, I will put together a package. It doesn't matter if it's a stranger on the street. It doesn't matter if it's someone I know. One thing I do is that no matter where I am, which woman it is, where we are in culture and society, I speak to them, because I think that when you become an extrovert, when you start to have a dialect with different people, you start to get an understanding of their behavior. And when we talk about behavior, there's a philosophy here when they say criminals, when they commit a heinous crime, they tell you the truth while lying, because it's subconscious. If you killed someone, you're not going to say I loved her. You're going to say I love her and she's going to be home, or I hope she's going to be home. So if you listen to, and we get our students to do this as well, we get them to listen to interrogations, and they are so boring, but it provides so many details and as to how and when people are trying to tell you something without actually telling you. So a lot of times what I look for is, again, it's conversation, because we've noticed that we don't see a lot of physical signs on the face. What we do here, what we see here in Toronto, domestic violence has taken a legging. So a lot of people will step forward to protect. But then again, if you're, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Toronto, Shivani, but in Toronto, we have a little town called Brampton, and they call it Brown Town because everybody is from East India, Pakistan, Punjabi. So they like to say, I'm not going to snitch on my neighbor, or I don't want to be the person to talk about what was happening, because we're afraid of cultural shaming and name shaming. So a lot of times these young women will endure the violence until they figure out a way out, or they get killed, right?
Right, Dr. Tiana. It was nice to discuss with you.
Pleasure meeting you, Shivani.
Thank you so much, Doc. This was a lovely session. I think my students have been waiting for too long to have this conversation, and thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure.
Especially today, which is International Women's Day. This has been great. And I think as women, we have been very lucky to have you and Dr. Shivani leading this department. She has been wonderful to us, and I think only as a woman I can talk to her, like you said, that it's important to have conversations. So thank you so much, Dr. Shivani and Dr. Tiana, for being here. And we're actually facing a bit of a network issue today. So thank you so much, Doc, for being here. And I know it has been really late there. I think it's going to be 12:30 now. So I'm not going to take a lot of time. And wish you a very happy Women's Day. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. I hope to meet everyone again soon.
Okay. Thank you, Doc.
Thank you, Dr. Pandey. Thanks, Dr. Chella. I'll be speaking to you soon. Thank you.
Can we have one screenshot? Yeah, can you please all turn on your camera so that we can have a screenshot of today's webinar? Thank you, Dr. Tiana, and thank you, Dr. Arushi.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I'm going to see you soon. Bye-bye. Good night.
Good night, everyone. Thank you for your time.